In this lesson, we're going to take a look at the various ways that we can assign items and remove, and then we'll also take a look at how you could perform feature detection. Now, in the last lesson, we learned that we could do local storage.setItem key value. Now, what's nice is, though, we can also apply this by doing local storage and immediately setting the key, dot, and then your key. So if we wanted to set a name key, we would do local storage.name equals Jeffrey Way. And that will be identical to what we did up here. Now we can also do it like this, local storage. As we're dealing with an object, once again, we can reference it like so. Now this method is preferred if maybe the key is stored within a variable. You can do local storage, then the variable name, and that's one way to do it. Now the same thing is true for getItem. Here, we're retrieving the value of the name key. We can also say local storage.name. And if we assign that to a value, that will then be equal to it. Next, for deleting, we can do local storage.removeItem. And this will be the same thing as doing the way you would normally delete a property from an object. Delete local storage.name. Now in the previous lesson, I also talked about clearing the local storage. Now this is a little bit different in that it will clear all of the keys. So in the case where you only want to delete the name key from local storage, you would use one of these methods. However, if you wanted to do a clean swipe and get rid of all local storage for that web page, you would do local storage.clear. Now, on to feature detection. We cannot depend on this because some older browsers like IE7 will throw an error if we try to use local storage. So we need to implement some feature detection. And luckily, this isn't too hard. So first, we'll take a look at the manual route, and then we'll use Modernizer. The common way that we can detect support for local storage is maybe we'll create a variable called support storage, and we'll make that equal to a function. And within here, we have to run it through a try-catch block, and that's because there could be errors thrown. So we want to make sure if there is an error thrown that we don't display it on the page, we simply return false. Because remember, we want this variable to be a Boolean. That way we can use it by saying, if the browser supports storage, then do something with it. So within here at try, we are going to try to return and see, does local storage exist within the window object? And it should, because normally we access local storage like this, but it's the same thing. It's a child of the window object. So it's the same thing as if we did window.localStorage. So now we're simply saying the way you would test maybe for a property on an object. Did you see local storage in the window? And we also have to do this extra test just to be 100% certain. We're going to try to access local storage this way as well. And if that does not equal null, we return true. So we do two tests here. Does local storage exist in the window object, and can we access it? Is it equal to null? If neither of those are false, we're going to return true. Now, if there is some kind of error from dealing with Internet Explorer, it will be caught within this catch block. And in that case, we don't want to do anything with it. We're just going to return false. That way, no matter what, support storage will return true or false. Then we can say if support storage, and let's just do an alert from now, supports. If I come back and reload the page, we know this browser supports it, so we get an alert. But if you view this in IE7, you won't get anything at all. Now, if you're just using local storage in your project, this is fine. Save it away to a variable and be done with it. However, if you're using a lot of the new HTML5 and CSS3 features, definitely use Modernizer. And in this case, we would get rid of all of this because Modernizer has already performed the test. Let's see what they're doing. I'm going to copy this and view the source. Always view the source. And I'm going to look for local storage here. And what's nice about the source is it'll provide some education here. So if you were wondering, why did we have to see if it didn't equal null? We can see right here. Normally, we could do it like this, but otherwise Firefox will throw whatever this error seems to be. So let's see the test. Performing local storage, and he's going to return local storage.getItem. That's going to be in a Boolean. They're doing it slightly different here. It's probably a little bit more thorough. And if there's an error, they return false. And he does the same thing for session storage, which has an API that's almost identical to local storage. The only difference is that session storage is limited to the lifetime of the window rather than local storage, which will persist across page loads. All right, so now that we have a basic concept of how Modernizer is implementing it, we can go ahead and use that abstraction. If modernizer.localStorage, and I want you to note that we're using a lowercase s. Normally, you'll access local storage by doing local capital S. But with Modernizer, this is fairly common. It will be all lowercase. So let's try this now. Come back, reload the page, and we get the same alert, but we didn't have to write that feature test ourselves. Modernizer does it for us, and that's what's really nice. We can just focus on coding and let Modernizer do its thing. So in the next lesson, we're going to test what we've learned, and we're going to work with the comment form to every 5 seconds or so save our comment. We'll do that in the next lesson.